Hello, learners. We are thrilled to back with yet another insightful interview experience, this time from Mediatek. We hope you are learning from all the interview experiences available on our channel and speeding ahead in your preparation journey. But before we jump into our video, we have got to share this amazing website with you, takeinterview.tech, which is really helpful for interview preparation and also super easy to use. Main advantage for us is that this site includes a wide array of VLSI and embedded questions from leading semiconductor recruiters. Once you are there, just click over to the interview question section. Website is packed with interview questions from more than 100 different companies. You can filter questions by topic or company name. They have got solutions and hints for every questions as well. Plus you can contribute and help others too. This website will surely help you for your interview preparations. It's definitely worth checking out. Link is in the description. Okay, now let's get back to our video.
My name is Srikanth. Currently, I'm working as RTL design engineer at Mediatek, Bangalore. I graduated from Bichpilani, Hyderabad campus in the year 2022. So currently I'm working as RTL design engineer in the Bangalore team. So when it came to our placements during when I was studying in campus, it came for three profiles basically. That was one is software, and the other one is like a digital profile, and the third one is the communication profile. So basically, the process of hiring was they have three rounds. One is written test, and the other one is the technical interview, and the third one is the HR round. So coming to written test, they have this criteria of 70% all throughout your academics. But during the time of our hiring, as they needed, they were hiring aggressively. There were a lot of openings. They lifted off the written criteria, so everybody was able to attempt the written. And moving to technical interview, it was kind of like a 45 minutes interview based on the profile which we are trying to give the interview for, and based on the written score, and whatever the section which we which we did well, they basically shortlisted the candidate for that particular role in the technical interview. And coming to the HR round, it was basically a formality round just to check if you have any preferences regarding the locations and all. So that was in basic overview of how the process went during my time. Coming to the hiring process of Mediatek, currently they are hiring in multiple ways. One is through LinkedIn, as we all know. They post their opening on the career page, and if you find that opening, they will post it on the LinkedIn as well. You can directly go to the careers page and apply it there as well. Or if they have any openings internally, they will let the team members know so that they can try to get any candidates who are having experience and who are looking out for a change of job. We can actually discuss in our circles and we can refer them internally. And one more way is through campus placements. They're hiring through campus, and also they go to these training institutes where people get trained for various profiles or various domains which the company is hiring for. Basically, the kind of profiles which they are currently hiring is for like software roles, basically that demands some development, some web application development. And also coming to the hardware part, they're hiring for roles like DFT, physical design, RTL design, and synthesis, HTA roles. And also coming to communication role, they're hiring for a lot of profiles like some 5G and 6G related development roles. And also coming to other aspects, I think the hiring process is more or less similar. They'll have a written test first, and if you clear the written test successfully, they'll be shortlisting you for the technical interview, where the interview process off campus is like a bit different from the campus hiring. Campus hiring has only a single technical interview after you clear the written, but when it comes to off campus, they have multiple levels of technical interviews. Basically, they start off with basic fundamental basic fundamental testing interview. And once if you manage to clear the fundamental interview, they'll have one more round of technical, where that interview will go along and it will try to assess more and more about what you have studied and what is your knowledge in the core sector. And if you manage to clear that, they'll have formality HR round, which basically tries to know about you have any preferences, if you have any preferences about the location or any other requirements. So that is how the process usually goes. And currently there are not much openings, and they're only hiring for very few roles based on any existing vacancies that are available in the current team because the market is currently in downtrend. They're not actually hiring aggressively compared to the previous years. If they start hiring, mostly they try to post these things on LinkedIn as well as the career page, so the candidates can follow the Mediatek LinkedIn page as well as the company website, where they keep posting about these job openings, which keeps coming as and when the requirement arises in the team. Okay, coming to the written test pattern, basically there are three sections in this written test. The written test has one section as logical reasoning and quantitative aptitude, which is basically of 10 minutes duration. And coming to the second section, it is of engineering basics. It covers all the basic engineering subjects which you have studied in your undergraduation. And coming to the third section, it is a core electronics section, which will cover the details about digital electronics, VLSI design, STA concepts, and basic Verilog concepts, coming to my particular profile, which I have given the written for. And coming to the duration of the exam, it is of 65 minutes. And coming to the number of questions, there were 53 questions divided into these three particular sections, which I have mentioned earlier. So coming to the breakup of the number of questions in each section, firstly, I would like to start with this logical reasoning and quantitative aptitude. It has basically 8 questions, and the duration was only 10 minutes. So basically, there was no negative marking, and the only important thing to keep in mind is to answer as many questions as possible in the short amount of time which they are giving. And the topics which they are trying to cover in this particular area is like the basic logical reasoning and the quantitative concept, like time and work, permutations and combinations, assertions and reasonings, and also probability concepts, and also other aptitude topics which we generally come across in any competitive exam. So this was the basically the topics which I was able to see in my in my question paper which I answered. So basically, as the time was very less and the question was a bit tricky, so as there was no negative marking also, we can take our chance and try to answer as many as possible as the time is very less. And coming to the other section, which is like the engineering basics, it has basically 17 questions, and the time duration for this particular slot is like 20 minutes. And one more thing which we need to keep in mind is that there was an option to switch between the sections. As and when we switch between the sections, the time which we started the any other section, it starts going up. It's not like it's an overall time is like you know uh, 20 minutes. Once you open that section, the counter for that particular section starts. So basically, if you start one section, try to finish that first and then move to the next section. If you start switching between section, the counter keeps ticking, and you will lose the time unnecessarily because of switching between sections randomly. So I would suggest close one section and then move to the next section. Otherwise, you'd be unnecessarily losing time on the other section which you're not at all answering at that point of time. So that is one important aspect which you need to keep in mind while answering the questions in different sections. So coming to the second section, as I mentioned, it has engineering basic concepts, like coming to various topics like network theory, EDC, analog electronics, and computer organization. All the basic engineering subjects which you have studied in the undergraduation. There'll be one or two questions from each subject, and the total number of questions is 17, and the total time is 20 minutes for this particular section. And as I mentioned, there is no negative marking here also. So try to answer as many as questions with accurate answer in the lesser amount of time which they're giving, only 20 minutes. So it's like kind of close to 1 minute for each question. So I would suggest don't waste time much on same question for a long time. Try to move the different question if you're not able to answer the same question. As there is no negative marking, try to take some chances here and there if you feel that if you feel any answer, as it's more of multiple choice questions. So try to take any chance, one or two chances here and there, as there is no negative marking. And coming to the core electronics section, it is a bigger section, as this basically decides in which profile you are going to be shortlisted for the technical interview. It has basically four different kinds of concepts. One is the digital electronics section, and the other one is the VLSI design concepts, and the other one is STA concepts, and one more thing is the basic Verilog questions. So based on the answering pattern of your particular this thing in this particular section, you will be shortlisted for the role on this particular section. So there were totally 28 questions, and the time duration was of 35 minutes. So it is also more or less like close to 1 minute 10 seconds or something like that, you can assume, for this particular section. So I was able to answer more questions on Verilog part as well as digital electronics part, and also few questions in VLSI design, and also few in STA. So based on my answering pattern, they have chosen me for synthesis and STA profile. So that basically means that I answered well in VLSI design concepts and the STA concept question. So it basically decides what profile they may consider you for in the next round, that is in the technical interview. So this sums up the whole process of written test. So coming to the duration, as I mentioned, it was 65 minutes on a whole. So as there was no negative marking, I would suggest answering as many as possible in the shorter amount of time that we have. So that is all about the written, coming to my personal experience. So coming to the interview pattern basically went in, it's generalized like, 4 different sections in each interview. Coming to, as I have observed over a period of multiple interviews that I've given, I've observed there were 4 sections the interviewers are trying to target. One is they start off with your basic self-introduction, and then they move into this technical part, which is your core domain in which you are currently pursuing your course. And coming to the other part, they have this programming section where they try to target and ask the programming related aspects like C programming or the Verilog programming, which we have in our core domain like electronics. And coming to the last section, they try to ask few questions from puzzles that which you can find online. So coming to my personal interview in Mediatek, the interviewer basically started off with my self-introduction. Once I covered my self-introduction, he tried to, check the details that I have mentioned on my resume. So whatever I have mentioned in my resume, he was trying to know some more details about what I was trying to mention on the resume. And basically, once I mentioned about my personal introduction, he started off with my previous work experience that I've included in my resume. So basically, that was into software role. So he started with asking me, why did you switch from software to hardware? So what was the motivation behind switching from software to hardware? So and why? What was the reason for me to leave that software role, and what was my motivation to switch the role from software and try to get into hardware industry? I was able to explain that well, and he was convinced. And after that, he was also asking me about the academic gap which I have after my undergrad. I had 1 or 2 years of academic gap. So he was asking about that particular part. He was asking me to. So basically, coming to this part, I would suggest the aspirants to honestly submit whatever they were doing. Interviewers only look for your honest answer. They don't want any cooked up or made up answers for that. As much as you're trying to be honest, they will try to be more free with you, and try to make the discussion more neat and comfortable for you as well. And once I explained what was the reason for my academic gap and what I was doing in that period of time, so he was also convinced about what I was doing, and he was trying to ask more about what was my motivation in pursuing this higher education. And once I started off with explaining about my master's course, he was asking me about the kind of subjects which I had studied in master's. And also he was asking me about what are my favorite subjects and what kind of subjects I like more, and what was my, he was basically trying to know my interest and trying to understand what I'm more interested to work on, so that he would, take the interview in that direction, try to ask the questions in that particular, area of interest which I was more interested in. So once that part was done, he moved into the project section of my particular resume. So I would say the project section would actually seal the interview for you. So once I explained about what was my motivation behind doing masters and what was my area of interest, he started moving into my project section on the resume. So he started off asking me about the project that I did on one memory concept. So the way that he was asking questions was like, initially he asked me what is the objective of that particular project that I've done, and he was asking me what are the performance targets, or what are the main targets I was trying to execute for that project. Once I explained that part, he moved into asking finer details about like going into fundamentals. Once I started about the project which I've done was like TCAM. Once I've started explaining about the operation and the purpose of that project, he asked me to explain about the SRAM part, which is the basic fundamental building block of that particular project. So he asked me to explain about the SRAM part. So he basically asked me what is an SRAM and how does it work, what is the functionality of the SRAM, what is the concept behind read rate operation of an SRAM, and what is the number of transistors used, and what is the process of the transistor sizing that I have used, and what was the approach that I have taken to execute this project, what are the problems that I have faced in executing this project. And once I have covered all the explaining all these details, he started going more deep into understanding the finer details and the fundamentals behind the overall project. So once I explained about the SRAM part, he started going into further finer details, like asking about what are the basic building elements of this particular SRAM. So once I explained what are the basic building blocks, like the inverter was the basic thing which was used as a fundamental building block in that particular SRAM. So he asked me about what are the basic building blocks, like what is the purpose of this building block which I have used. And once I explained him about that, he moved into asking me questions about the CMOS inverter part, which was the building block of this SRAM. So once I started explaining about CMOS inverter, he was asking me questions like, what are the characteristics of this CMOS inverter? What are the rise time, fall time characteristics? What are the other important parameters which I was keeping in mind while designing the transistor sizing? And he was asking me about once I explained this inverter characteristics part, he moved into asking me why I was choosing this SRAM architecture for the particular project. Instead of choosing SRAM, what would happen if I choose a DRAM over this SRAM architecture in the same design? What would happen if I choose a DRAM over an SRAM? So he was asking me differentiate what would happen if I choose a DRAM over an SRAM in that particular concept which I was executing. So he basically moved into further asking more questions about what does a DRAM do and what is the basic difference do I find coming to DRAM and SRAM. And he asked me a few differences about DRAM and SRAM. And once I was able to explain that part, he moved into asking other questions like what is the basic memory architecture that we are currently using in our processors. And once I explained that, he asked me about a few questions on cache memory. So he was asking me what are the levels of cache and what are the types of cache that we have in our processor designs currently in modern day processor designs. And so basically he was trying to ask more and more questions on the memory part, as the project was a memory basically. So he was trying to explore the memory concepts and how well I'm aware of what are the modern day memory things that are being in use in current day processors. And also once I explained that part, he moved into asking me basic questions like what is the difference between a latch and flip flop. That is again once again a basic memory element. And he was asking me the question like what is the difference between the latch and flip flop. And once I explained that, he asked me to draw some circuits again using design a flip flop or a latch using a basic gate instead of directly using a flip flop. If I'm given a few gates, how would I design a flip flop or a latch? So basically any big architecture basically is made up of any fundamental building block. So basically I was trying to target if I take any application, he was trying to target any application and trying to ask me what is the fundamental building block behind the overall execution of that particular application or the item, which I was trying to explain. So once I explained the latch and flip flop part, he asked me to design a latch and a flip flop using the basic gates. So once that part was done, he was asking me to explain design like flip flop using a 2:1 multiplexer. Once I explained that part, he asked me a few questions on how would it work, and I was able to explain it with the waveforms. He was asking me to draw the waveforms and explain the operation of that particular circuit and how does that function. And once I explained that part, he moved into asking me questions like LUT, and LUT is again made up of multiplexers. So he was asking me what is an LUT and where do I get to see those LUTs in real time application. So once he asked me question about LUT, I explained him that I remembered FPGA part, so I explained about FPGAs. So once he heard me saying FPGA, he started asking me more questions about FPGA. And in that, he went into details like what is an FPGA, what do you know about FPGA, and what kind of execution we had to do with an FPGA. And once I started explaining that part, he moved into asking comparison with FPGA. What are the different types of other components like FPGA, like maybe like PLS, PLDs, CPLDs, and FPGAs. He was asking me to compare FPGAs, CPLDs, and what are the differences between those particular things. And once I explained that part, basically he tried to, in a summary, he tried to basically target the fundamentals. I understood like he was trying to test my fundamentals. And coming to overall summary of the interview, I would say that instead of focusing more on details, he was trying to ask me how well I'm aware of the details in the project, and how attentive I was when he was asking the question, because the interview went more in a rapid fire fashion rather than going more into details and more detailed discussion. He was trying to come up with a counter question for every possible thing I was speaking. Whenever I was using a fancy term, he was trying to catch that thing and he was trying to pose me a question on that particular fancy term which I was using. So basically, the interview round went for 30 minutes. And in that 30 minutes, he asked me like around 30 to 40 questions. So it was very short duration, but he asked me a lot of questions because he did not go more into details, but he was trying to come back and ask me a counter question for everything that I was speaking. So in that fashion, the interview went very short, but the number of questions which he asked me were very quite a lot. So and moving on, he ended the interview on this project section, and then later on he moved into the other sections of my resume, like the achievements or the other things like extracurricular activities that I have performed during my academics. So that part he wanted to know more about what I was doing and where I was participating, and how well I was good at handling other activities outside the academics part. And that also I was able to explain. And also there was one question like, tell me something what is not on your resume. So he has seen a lot of questions. I mean, he was asking me a lot of questions which were there on the resume. I was able to answer well, but there was one surprising question like, tell me something which is not present on your resume. So I was trying to see my awareness and situation awareness with that particular question. So I was able to answer that part also because I was already prepared for that particular question. So I was able to answer that particular question. And moving on to the end, he closed the interview. He closed the technical discussion part, and as there was no HR round, there was a HR round initially, but later on they removed it. So he was trying to ask me few HR questions. So like he was asking me which profile I am looking for if I am hired, and what are my choices of interest if I am hired. And also like he was asking me what do I know about the company, and currently they are and currently he was asking me what they are currently working on, what technology they are working on. And also he was trying to ask me that he was kind of asking me a question like, if I am given an opportunity in the Mediatek, or if I was given an opportunity in other companies, which one would I pick at that point of time. So as there were many companies coming for campus placements on bids, he was directly hinting that, as he already knows that, as he was asking the question like, there are many big companies that are coming to your campus for hiring. So if suppose there is a scenario arises that you got an offer from us, also you got another offer from our competitor as well. So how would you treat if you have an offer from both of us? Our competitor also hired you and we also hired you. So what would you prefer in that scenario? What is your opinion in that case? Which one would you go with? Then in that particular scenario, I explained like, as I am a fresher and I'm looking for an opportunity, I would be happy to take a role which whoever offers me first. It's not like I want to I have this preferences of going into that company or this company. I was basically looking for an opportunity at that point of time. So I explained him that it's not like I'm targeting any specific company. I only wanted to get into the industry because the college has provided me a platform to to get the understanding of the conceptual concepts to get into the industry. So I've acquired good enough understanding of the concept the college was trying to deliver. And once I got hold of concepts, I was basically trying to looking for an opportunity. So whatever the opportunity comes to me, that is one thing which I would take it with both hands. It's not like I have any preferences about the companies I wanted to join. So at this point of time, as I'm giving this interview, this is the only thing I'm looking for. I'm not looking for anything outside. So he was convinced with my answer, and then later on he asked me about if I have any preferences about the location and all. And with that note, he ended the interview. So on a summary, I would say that the interview was more of rapid fire coming to technical part. So he asked me a lot of questions and trying to see how well I was able to come up with an answer for every question that he was asking. He did not waste much time on the questions which I was not answering. And overall, I tried to answer all the questions, and he did not waste any time on the questions which I was not able to answer. As and when I was answering, he was moving to the next question immediately. So try to be attentive on what he was asking. So that was the basic summary I got out of that particular interview. And once that ended, I think the interview ended with the discussion about do I have any preferences about the location, and that was the interview process. With that, he ended the interview, and there was no HR round, as they have removed the process once as the same questions were asked in the technical interview only. So I think that was the overall experience I had in that particular interview. Okay, so coming to my preparation strategy during my placements. So the campus placements actually start after the second semester got over. I mean, that's like after the end of first year. So before that itself, I mean, after the end of first semester, we started, interacting with our seniors who were already placed by that time. So we got to discuss with them. So what is the strategy we need to use, or what was the strategy they were using at their point of time when they were studying masters. So after discussing with them, they shared a lot of materials or a lot of their experiences which they used during their preparation. So at least 3-4 months before, they suggested to start the placements, because the placement cycle usually starts in July and August. That is after the second semester ends. So from March or April, they suggested, I mean, at the end of first semester, maybe you can start collecting the materials or the documents or the important links or the other important stuff which you might be needing for starting off your preparation journey for the placements. basically the first thing I would like to mention is like you try to understand the profiles, what all profiles the companies are hiring for, and what is your particular area of interest, and what is the profile you might want to target. So, and what are the concepts which you need to be aware for each particular profile that the companies might come and hire for. So these are the things which you need to basically keep in mind when you are starting your preparation. What kind of companies are going to come, and what are the previous roles they came for hiring in the previous years, and what is the where do you stand coming to that particular profile, where do you stand, and what is your level of understanding coming to any particular concept. And based on your personal assessment, maybe you can start off with collecting the material which is needed for targeting a particular profile. So basically I actually contacted many of my seniors who were actually into that particular profile or who were into various profiles. I try to talk with them, and what is their experience and what would they suggest coming to my level of conceptual understanding that I have at that point of time. So I started off with my taking out my gate preparation material which I used for my gate examination. So that actually helped me a lot because I already had I took it as I have written the handwritten notes for my gate preparation. That helped me a lot to start off basically because I already had the conceptual understanding, but I just need to brush the important concepts which I might be needing for the interview preparation. So basically, one important thing which I needed to keep in mind at that point of time was what to read and what to not read. So if you can figure out that, your interview process goes, I mean, the preparation process goes very smooth. If you're not able to figure out that, you'll lose a lot of time in unnecessary, part. So that as the interview process and the written process is very competitive, and the people who are there in the campus are pretty much good enough, and they're very competitive. It's not like it's not going to be cakewalk. So you need to be playing your A game at that point of time. So time management is a very important aspect which you need to keep in mind. You need to plan your preparation part, which things you need to start off. I mean, it should be like to understand one particular concept, you should have the fundamentals strong, right? So basically, I started off my preparation with the digital electronics part, which is the must for everybody. So once I covered the digital part, I also covered this EDC and EDC part. Once I did these two, which are the basics of this undergrad, I moved into the VLSI part, which builds upon these two concepts which we learn in undergraduation. So that is a post graduation subject which we have more details and more advanced topics. So once we have this idea of planning the preparation and planning it in structured way, it actually helps you build your confidence on the topics which you are not very thorough before. So that was the way I preferred, starting off with fundamentals and building upon it as and when the time progresses. So as and when the preparation part of the conceptual understanding is done, I started off with practicing questions. The questions part is like dealing with solving as many questions in the less amount of time. That is one important thing. Solving with accuracy and maintaining the speed also. So that is one important aspect. A speed part will not come initially. Initially, you need to focus on accuracy. As and when your accuracy is building, you need to start focusing on the speed as well. So it actually decides decides your chances in the written test. And coming to this technical aspect, this was the way I used. And coming to the aptitude part, so aptitude basically deals with solving more and more topics and more questions. As you keep solving more and more questions, you will try to get the knack of solving the questions in a less amount of time in the in the examination, in the written examination. So coming to this aspect also, we referred previous year papers and also the previous year topics which the seniors had remembered. What are the questions which they might have seen in their preparation process. They have suggested the topics which they have seen, and basically firstly start off with the important topics which the seniors or previous years have already suggested, because aptitude is a huge ocean. You cannot start off do one section and ignore the other part. There is a possibility of asking question from any topic. So basically I preferred trying to solve the questions which were asked in the previous year. So that would try to that would give an better approach. That I felt that was a better approach rather than solving everything starting randomly. So I started off with preparing for the topics which were asked in the previous years or at the last 3-4 years. So that was a good way I felt. So I started off with initially the previous 3-4 years questions topics as well. And once I covered those things, I moved into other topics which I felt I was not very confident in solving. So I broke up my preparation in this way. Initially started off with the concepts which were asked in previous years, and once I ended up doing them successfully, I moved into other topics where I was not comfortable. So this is how I structured my preparation. By the time interview process came, I was done with the technical part, and also the aptitude part, and also the programming part also. I referred few of the sources which I will mention later on, and I practiced them. And also coming to the last part, like puzzles also, our seniors shared us so many documents related to the puzzles they were asked, and I referred all those puzzles. And also beyond those documents which they have shared, I've also referred some online sources where I found so many puzzles where which the interviews might be asking frequently in all the, not even in hardware interviews, in any interviews. Most of the interviews try to ask the questions from the same sources which we keep finding it online. So that is how there were four sections I targeted. One is like technical section, and the other is programming, and the other is the aptitude part, and one is the puzzle part. So these things would be essential for clearing any interview, or the clearing any interview basically. For written test, your practice makes things easier in the written. And programming part also, you need to have more and more practice. And also coming to the interview part, I felt we planned the mock interviews with our seniors, and also we planned mock interviews among our peers itself, so that we can have the feel of interview, and try to take a honest feedback from the interviewer, whoever is interviewing, and try not to fool yourself, and try to get the honest feedback from the person who is interviewing you, so that we got to understand our flaws, or we got to know where we need to improve, so that we can correct ourselves and improve that aspect. So that was the strategy basically. So coming to the preparation sources and all, I would start off with the aptitude part. Coming to the aptitude section, I refer to sources like India Bix, and also I solved few questions from RS Agarwal, and also I referred all the branches aptitude section of the GATE examination. It's not like only one branch. I referred various branches aptitude question paper of all the GATE exam papers of all the other branches as well. And these are the three things which I followed while preparing for the aptitude section. And coming to the programming part, C programming part, I refer to sources like NISO Academy. This is a very famous YouTube channel. And also there is one more YouTube channel called Naresh IT Academy. They share very good short videos of some interview questions, also very good content on what are the questions which the interviewers might ask. Also few questions like asking, I mean, the interviewer might ask a question like swap two variables using 5 different ways. So many of these questions which I already got to exposed on this particular YouTube channels. Some of them have been asked to me in few of the interviews. I mean, these channels were very helpful for me. So that is, the one is NISO Academy, and another one is the Naresh IT Academy. And coming to books, I would suggest, I basically followed a book called C in Depth by Harry H. Chowdhury. That was a book which I followed for preparing more in detail about C language. And coming to a Verilog part, there were three sources which I would recommend, and I personally followed. One is the NPTEL lecture series by Indranil Sengupta. That is mostly followed by everyone. And coming to other thing, there is a website called HDL Bits, where we actually get to solve a lot of scenarios where they give where they give case statement, and we need to solve the Verilog. I mean, we need to write the program for that, and we can simulate the program there and then, and we have a solution also for that. If we successfully give the answer, they will provide a solution also, so you can verify your solution. That is one very good website which I followed. And also one more thing is following this text book called book by Samir Palnitkar. That is one good source which I referred for Verilog preparation. And also coming to the technical part, there basically it deals with solving most of the technical concepts which are from EDC, digital, VLSI design, and also some other important topics from other subjects. And also coming to this particular aspect of preparation, basically coming to written test, I preferred solving this DGQ, which is a very popular source followed by everyone. This is DGQ is one of the source followed by everyone, which is available online also. Our seniors also shared it to us. So I started off with solving all the questions in DGQ, which has all the topics which the written test might be having. So basically, it covers all the important topics the written test might have, and also some of the questions the interviewer might ask. It was very helpful for me, the DGQ solving. And once I solved DGQ, I moved into solving the previous year question papers of the previous year exams which the seniors had, and I solved the previous year question papers also. And also coming to the YouTube sources which I referred for VLSI design, I followed this Janaki Raman course which is there on YouTube from NPTEL. And also I followed one particular channel which was very helpful for me in revising my concepts of this digital electronics and also EDC concept. That is the channel called Gatecrackers. It is one source which I followed when I was trying to revise my concept for digital and EDC. It has very good conceptual videos which help me to get a quick revision of the topics which I wanted to refer. And also coming to a few other channels which I referred were like for some miscellaneous topics on STA concepts, or on some CDC concepts, or on metastability concept. These few topics which and also some DFT related topics. And also these are the few things which I try to refer online, and also few sources from YouTube. And one is this channel called Technical Bytes. There are so many short videos in that particular channel which explains few topics which the interviewers might ask. And also there is one more channel called Electron Tube, which discusses important things about DFT concepts and also memories. So these two topics which I mostly refer this particular channel, where they had some good content and short videos. And also coming to STA concepts, I basically followed this VLSI expert website, which had a lot of information about the STA concepts. So most of the questions which I was able to answer, this particular source of information helped me in getting a thorough understanding of STA knowledge. And the questions which were asked to me in interview also were kind of more or less, picked from this particular source. So I would suggest everybody to follow this VLSI expert website, where they have very good content on STA. So coming to the end part, I would suggest, introspecting what went wrong in the previous interview, which you might not be able to clear, and also working on the area which you felt you could have done better. And also, one more thing you need to keep in mind is the approach is more important than the final solution. As and when you give the right approach, even though your answer might not be right, the approach will help you to convey the interviewer that you are good enough to solve the question if given more time. And if given an opportunity, you are a worthy candidate to prove yourself. If given an opportunity, that is one way to showcase yourself in the interviews. And also one thing is, in the competition, there is always a chance that the number of questions which you might be answering, the similar level of questions which everyone might answer might not help you to clear the interview. There is one question, one or two questions here and there which will actually help you to seal the interview. Actually, that will make all the difference. So you need to keep focus on that particular areas where that will be the question which will seal the interview for you. So it happened for me as well, right? There are some questions which were asked to everybody. There were one or two questions which not everybody were able to answer. So that kind of questions helped me clear the interview which others could not clear. So you need to keep in mind there are some important questions, or some different questions which everybody might not answer. Some regular questions everybody might be answering, because those were moderate to easy level questions. So you need to have an idea in mind that okay, this kind of question everybody will answer, but you need to be having that consciousness that there is this deciding question which will actually differ you from the rest of the competition. So that kind of questions which sometimes if you are not doing well, try to focus on those areas where after the interview, if you felt that that you could have done better, either it will help your juniors, or if you are not able to clear that interview, in the next interview maybe that will be the question which will seal the deal for you in the particular company. So as for me as well, for 2 or 3 companies, I was not accepting my mistake which I was doing. I felt that I answered everything well, but still the interview was not picking my candidature. So once I started introspecting myself, I understood that this could have been the reason where I was not selected. So once I started accepting and I started working on it, in the next interview, I did not repeat the same mistake which I was doing in the earlier companies interviews. So that's one thing you need to have track of. So as and when you complete the interview of one company, just try to introspect what all things happened in the interview and what all things you could have done better, which might be helpful for you to prepare yourself in a better next, or else can guide your juniors, which are or your friends also who are still yet to be placed. So that actually helps. Try to have that information which actually what kind of discussion happened between you and the interviewer. And one more important aspect is try to know the job profile, and try to talk to the people in the industry. What is the cutting edge work that is happening in the industry? You need to stay updated with what's happening in the industry. That is one important thing which you need to keep in mind, because academics is not everything. You also need to stay updated with what's happening in the industry. What is the latest technology that is coming? What kind of technologies they are using? And when the interviewer asks you, you might want to know something, or you want to ask something. Please try to ask one question. Have some question for the interviewer. It will end the interview on a good note. Even my interviewer asked me if I have any questions. So till that point of time, I was also not prepared to ask anything. But because some of me suggested that it's always good to ask something to end the interview on a good note. It's not like it should not be like a radio or one-way communication. So it's always better to end the discussion on a good note. So always have one or two questions in the end to ask the interviewer if he asks that do you have any questions. So that is one more thing. And one more thing is, as I've already mentioned, know your interviewer. If you have that chance to get to know your interviewer before the interview happens, try to go through his social media profile. So that actually requires you to have the social media presence on the important platforms like LinkedIn or some other platforms where you might get to deal with different members from the industry or the community, so that you can see what is happening, latest happenings or what are recent happenings. So try to stay updated with the industry happenings and what are the changes that are happening in the industry. So that is one thing which you need to be stay updated with. So, and with that note, I would I would feel that this whatever the information that I have shared will be helpful to you, and I would say all the best to all the candidates who are into enter into this VLSI industry, uh, and best of luck everybody. Thank you.